This year, our theme is the year of divine acceleration. We've been hearing so much good word. The theme for February, we've been talking about preparing for the new thing that God will do in you. Preparing for the new thing that God will do in you. Today, we want to focus and start talking about living your legacy. Before we get started, it's important for us to understand there are multiple meanings of legacy before, both of them either natural perspective from a natural perspective or from a spiritual perspective. So from natural, there are multiple definitions. You have a legacy can be a gift from the past to help create a better future. Usually this is kind of monetary or personal property. You have something that's transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor from the past. Elder Johnson has done a great job of kind of giving us some examples of legacy. A candidate for membership in an organization such as a school, sorority, or fraternity. This is like when you're given special status because of a familiar relationship, somebody who's a family member of someone who was associated with one of those organizations. And then you have a spiritual legacy. A spiritual legacy focuses on what will endure. It transcends the natural life and influences the shape and shapes the future. It's about passing on things of lasting value to those who live on after us. It's about being intentional with living and aiming to build into next generations for their success. So when I think about legacy, I always associate it with like prestige, with power. Like it sounds regal, right? I'm leaving a legacy. Legacy is often associated with good things. One of my favorite scriptures is a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Like we all love that scripture. That scripture, we have it in our prayers, our declarations. Lord, we thank you for blessing our children. Help us to be good stewards. Oh, we thank you for blessing our children's children because it sounds good. It sounds deep, right? But legacy isn't always positive. They aren't always good. We have just as much potential to leave a bad legacy as we do a good legacy. I know it's okay because some of us are still bobbing and weaving and binding generational curses as I teach. God is going to do something new. So there are some generational curses that I'm still fighting, still cursing at the root. But I got to get prepared for the new thing because for me, I don't know about you, but for me, the buck stops here. Say it with me. The buck stops here. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for the new. I need the new. I got some people coming behind me whose their destinies are tied to that new. I got some legacies to leave. Our legacy is tied up in the new. I got legacies to rewrite. Like, yeah, we think we can't rewrite legacies. There's some specific legacies I got to change for my family. Like I'm changing the legacy that says I always got to be the borrower. No. We lending over here. I said the buck stops here. We got to teach the next generation how to move from borrower status to lender status, right? We got to teach them how to be tithers, how to be offering givers, about the principles of sowing. These are all things that tie into our legacies, about blessing others, not just blessing others, because we get caught on the blessing others, not just blessing others, but blessing others without expecting anything in return. Yeah, we got to teach them how to be givers instead of takers, how to save. One of the greatest lessons I learned while being at Total Praise, and I'm still learning, spend some, sow some, save some. We got to teach them how to invest. Elder was talking about investing earlier. She was talking about education and the importance of education. Investing is not always financial. Teach them how to invest in themselves, how to invest in their futures, how to invest in their children. All of these things are legacy, how you build your legacy. I'm talking about changing legacy. See, I'm changing that legacy that says I have to live with diabetes. No, we don't. Because we have the power to make better decisions. We know better, we do better. We can and we will make healthier choices. You ain't gotta get mad. I'm not talking about you. I can and I will make better choices. We are gonna get up. We're gonna get moving. We're not gonna drink 10 Cokes a day. We're not gonna sit at Longhorn because y'all know that's one of my favorite restaurants and have 4 strawberry lemonade. Gary probably somewhere driving saying amen right there because it's me. The better choice is water, right? The better choice is water. But I'm not sitting, I'm going to drink me a lemonade. But if I drink me a strawberry lemonade, I ain't got to get 4. Let me get some water too, right? We're talking about all that legacy that we continue to recreate, those bad legacies. We ain't got to eat a pot of rice and count it as our side order. Yeah, I said a pot because see, y'all know Gary. Like my girl said, he writes me busting. Okay, I'm just trying to help us. I'm just trying to help us. No, we are not going to go to sleep eating candy. Wake up in the middle of the night searching for something sweet. I ain't talking about you, Bishop. Or getting up, eating again, and laying back down. Still talking about legacy. Don't get mad. Because if you sit again in the butter pecan in front of me, then you found my thorn. I'm talking about us. We got to rewrite it because our legacy is tied up in the new. The next generation is watching us. And without knowing it, we are speaking to their legacy. Yeah. You better know that these new generations, they ain't the old generations. The times of telling something and doing something completely different, the times of because I said so, they're long gone. We in the show me season. You want to rewrite the legacy? You're going to have to live the legacy. You think Martin Luther King just spoke about the dream? No, he was teaching it, preaching it, but he was out there living it. Why? That is why his dream has transcended his natural life. His legacy continues to live to this day. People are still fighting for that dream. People are still benefit from that living. He's talking about living our legacy was an example. So we have to do the same. We have to live our legacy. So change the legacy that says, turn to alcohol and drugs to cope and deal with life. Let's show them something new. Show them that the pressure of life will come. But we're not folding because no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Show them that it may not look good or feel good right now, but all things work together for our good. We're talking about changing legacy, right? Show them that even when it looks like you're losing, we're not, because we're already victorious. We've already got the victory. We got to write some new pages and create positive legacies that hold value, legacies that can be passed down from generation to generation. Martin Luther King Jr. was not just concerned about his children. He was concerned about the next generations to come. We can't just be so concerned about our own children and our children's children and what's going on in our own little bubbles. We've got to ensure we are living and building our legacies to transcend generations. Everything that is connected to me and everything that is connected to them. Do you understand the power of that influence? So everything that's connected to me, my sphere of influence, they also have connections in the sphere of influence, and they're carrying some legacy to those spheres of influence as well. So every connection and influence transfer legacy to other connections. So you're without you even realizing that your legacy is being connected to multiple legacies and transcending throughout multiple generations. I want to leave that Martin Luther King Jr. type legacy, the Christ type legacy, because guess what? It's bigger than us. It's bigger than me and mine and my group. Just like the definitions, legacy is such a multifaceted word. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but we are all products of many different types of legacies, right? And in turn are a part of creating multiple avenues of legacies. So we have our family legacies, we have our spiritual legacies, we have the community legacies, and even your legacies in business. And these are just like a few, but just by even those few, you can see where they're going to overlap, from family to spiritual, from spiritual to community, and even to business. Okay. So with the family, it may represent your blood relatives, but those same blood relatives look to you as a spiritual leader. In darkness, they're looking to you for you to be the light. They hold us sometimes to what we feel like and believe are unfair standards, right? But they're looking for you to be the example and for you to be the difference maker. For you to be the one that influenced the situation, because guess what? They see legacy changer in you. They see you with the pen. You got the power to rewrite the legacy. I mean, what kind of authority? That's great authority. You have your children who are your natural children, your natural parents, and spiritual parents too, as well as them even being extensions of your natural family. So we're talking about the overlap, right? They are exposed a lot of times to those same negative narratives and legacies that you are. But guess what? They're looking to you for you to course correct the legacy. They're also looking to see if you're going to waver under the weight of it. They want to see if you're going to compromise. Sometimes if they are anything like my two, Michaela and Madison, and they see the spiritual legacy, they trying to see if that spiritual legacy is matching that family legacy. So we're talking about being transparent right now, right? If you're real, some of our legacies are not lining up when it spans across multiple areas. I'm just saying, I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking about some of our legacies are not lining up. And these new children, the ones we have now in this current generation, if they anything like mine, they don't have a filter. They will call you out on it. It's okay, don't get mad. Like, you see, we weren't allowed to be inquisitive. We weren't allowed to question mama and dad and understand why what we were seeing didn't match up. We didn't have that liberty, right? We don't think that it's a big deal, but everything you do and every decision you make, every opportunity you're given to share and influence someone, whether it's intentional or unintentional, impacts your legacy. That's why you can't be asleep at the wheel. Your legacy will be defined by your passion, your intentionality, and the impact of the people that you influence. Every area of our lives that we have influence, there lives legacy. A renowned author said it this way: legacy is about life and living. It's about learning from the past, living in the present, and building for the future. So let's jump into our first point. So today, remember, we're talking about living your legacy. Point number one, legacy requires a transition. The most important legacy we'll have is the legacy of Christ. In John 12, Jesus' ministry on the earth was ending. He spent chapters 13 through 16 with the disciples, preparing them for his upcoming departure and leaving his legacy. It's interesting to me to see how the disciples, they were actually side by side with Jesus during their ministry, serving with him, observing, learning from him, and he still had to prepare them for his departure. The disciples became overwhelmed at the thought of being left behind without Jesus, but he couldn't stay. He came down on assignment. He had to fulfill his purpose, and fulfilling that purpose required a vacancy to be created. Because guess what? As long as he was there, they would continue to lean and depend on him, right? So it required a vacancy to be created. There had to be a transition. It was time for the disciples to now take what they had learned from him and start living the legacy that was being transitioned to them. So now switching and transitioning from him living the legacy to them now taking and living them, right? So how does this apply to us? We are his disciples in the earth. So as those carrying the legacy of Christ, we must now make sure that we are in position. We must live the legacy of Christ. So what's the legacy? I'm glad you asked. Mark 12, 28, 31 explains Jesus' legacy best. So Mark 12, 28 through 31, the NIV version reads, one of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, of all of the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, Jesus answered, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind and all of your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. So simply put, love like Jesus. That's it. That's the legacy. So you want it to be all complicated. No. Love like Jesus. There is one God. Love him with all of your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength. Because remember, we talk about your soul is your mind and your will and your emotions, right? So that within itself is an assignment. That means everything within you, giving all of you over to him. And the second is to love thy neighbor as thyself. So how many can say we are successfully living the legacy? I know it's tough, but it's true. Some of us are struggling with some portion of that legacy, whether it is loving him with all of your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, or loving thy neighbor as thyself, right? Because let's talk about loving thy neighbor as thyself. It's the pure, unadulterated, long-suffering love of God that truly covers, heals, breaks chains, sets free. And if we can ever come to the realization for the need of that agape type of love, because that is the love that really changed our stories. But all right, I'm gonna move. As the kids say, I'm gonna head out. We don't talk about that. Now let's talk about making sure you're sold out to the one God and not making other things our God. Or if we are truly loving him with our whole heart, our soul, mind, will, and emotions, and all your strength. Because if we're honest, we're not. We don't have to shine the light on that. We don't want to shine it. We have got to stop making other things more important than our relationship with God. Because if we really pay attention to everything going on around us, the enemy has placed so many distractions in front of us. The agendas of the wicked have flooded the mainstream. I mean, there are agendas everywhere. But we are behind, we're asleep behind the wheel. That's what we are. We're asleep behind the wheel. And the purpose is for us to slowly be distracted and slowly be pulled away from God. Because when we stop prioritizing him, we slowly begin to loosen our grip and our legacy, causing us to miss transitions and shifts. We're missing too many transitions. Missing one transition, you can lose an entire generation. And we're seeing it. We're seeing us slowly losing generation after generation because we have too many legacy builders falling asleep at the wheel. Yeah, one transition means the deterioration, contamination, or even the death of a legacy. So what does that mean? That means we got to start putting on cell phones. Talk about me too. It's okay. We gotta disconnect from social media sometimes. Get off the TikToks because hey, I'm telling y'all, them TikToks, them videos will have you in a never-ending loop. I mean, you just be giggling and laughing and sharing, and before you know it, 2 hours later, you still there. Okay, it's an agenda, and that's one agenda that we've fallen privy to. We got to get back to truly connecting with people, connecting with the next generation, understanding what motivates them. What are they dealing with? I mean, these kids are dealing with so much more than we ever had to deal with. We thought we was dealing with something then, but then just think about it. They have access to so much stuff. People have so much access to our kids. We give them access to our kids. But are we screening? Are we looking to see what's the agenda behind what I've just given access to my child for? All of these things have underlying initiatives and agendas for our children. They're attacking them younger and younger. And guess what? We're asleep behind the wheel, so we're just turning the kids over to them. We got to be encouraging them to be open and transparent and being able to give godly counsel to show and love through it all. Like, we got to be able to love them through it. Allow God to do something new in you, and then he'll do something new through you. Allow him to use you to reach them and to love them. Everything that worked for your generation is not going to work for this new generation. It's not. We have got to be led by God. Not saying everything that was put in us don't work. I'm not saying the discipline was not necessary. I'm saying our approach may have to be different with this new generation. We got to be their compass. Help guide them. But in the midst of that, we have to make sure that we are still making sure the true north is always God. You may not always connect with them through the traditional ways. We got to meet them where they are. We can't get so caught up in tradition that we lose touch with those who may be able to step up or who must be able to step up when it's time for the transition. Remember, each transition requires a vacancy, right? It's like a changing of the guards. So with the changing of the guards, the new guard shows up to take the position of the current guard. Not sure if you guys are familiar with the Queen's Guards. So over in Europe, the Queen, the Queen of England and the group, they would the changing of the guards is a ceremony that happens daily for each shift. So with the changing of the guards, the new guard shows up to take the position of the current guard. The old guard does not leave the post until the new guard arrives. So the new guard shows up to duty, ready to take over the responsibility. So before the new guard is able to do so, the old guard must vacate their position, their post. Remember, I said earlier, a vacancy must be created. So the vacancy is there only long enough for the new guard to assume the role. So at some point, the new guard had to desire to want to take the position and responsibility, right? Somewhere he saw a guard and he was like, I want to be like that. I want to do what they're doing. And I want to be able to now start preparing to take that position. Likewise, we should be connecting with others and preparing our next generations. They should be looking at us like, I want to serve God. I want to worship God. We got to pour into them, allowing them to learn from us, learning from them, preparing them to take the mantle of the responsibility of the legacy. Proudly in position, preparing for the vacancy, and begin to continue to build upon the legacy. They gotta want to do it. And the way that we get and we reach them is through our relationship with God, because he's going to lead and he's going to guide us. If we look around and we cannot identify our successors, we are failing. We should see our successors in every generation, in every family, in every ministry, in every business, in every community. There should be successors that we can identify. And if not, then that should be a telltale sign that we are not aligned with the legacy of Christ. Yeah. We still talking about the legacy of Christ. And we are in danger of losing a generation. We got to take a step back. We got to ask God, give us vision. I'm sorry, I was asleep. Help me to restore the legacy. Give me strategy. If a vacancy is not created, then there is no space for transition or promotion. So we're not creating vacancies because we're sitting there holding the spot, not paying attention, not doing anything, not pouring, not mentoring, not even ready to move. And if we're not pouring into and mentoring the next generations, there will not be any successors, and we've missed the mark. Not you, we've missed the mark. Point number 2, legacy requires preparation. When I think back to the legacy of my natural family, the one that I was born into versus the legacy of the ones in my household, I understand that the legacy is not something that you just wake up one day and you just do and pass on, right? Legacy is something you must prepare for. It's something you create. It requires preparation. You got to be intentional. When I think about the legacy, I'm reminded of the spiritual relationship between Paul and Timothy. Paul was Timothy's spiritual father, but in 2 Timothy 1, Paul gave honor to Timothy's lineage. Verse 5, NIV reads, I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother, Lois, and in your mother, Eunice, and I'm persuaded now lives in you also. If it was up to the bloodline legacy, no one desires to create legacies that will lead to hurt or pain or strife. Like, you don't wake up and say, I want to pass this pain and strife down to my generation. No one wants to perpetuate a generational curse. Sometimes it's a lack of knowledge. Sometimes it is the absence of God, who we know gives us the strength to be able to overcome the different obstacles and the highs and lows of our lives. Most times, guys, it is just a lack of preparation. I don't know about you, but I want our legacy to speak through our children. How many of you know that your legacy will speak through your children? Most of the time, you can get a glimpse of people's legacies by looking at the way they raise their children. So when I look around, remember we say that your legacies overlap, right? So when I look around, I knew before I had kids that there was one skill I wanted to acquire as a parent. Okay. That skill was the look. Okay. So there was this look that the Vaughns, Elder Vaughn specifically, and the Robinsons, Terry and Tasha, I'm sorry, Deacon Terry, Prophetess Tasha, they would get them kids. And it was like the fear of God would just rattle in their soul, and they would just quickly find a seat and sit. I knew I wanted to acquire that. Check mark, got that. And then the Joneses, like, even after I look at them, like, even as they become empty nesters, their kids returning home, they return home and they spend time with them, right? That makes me smile as a parent. Every time they come home, they find their way, not just to their house, but they find their way to the house of God to worship with their parents. Like, that's important to me. Like, that speaks to preparation, because these behaviors came from the lessons and the discipline that parents poured into them. So I'm thankful for that. but not only for the things that I can see that are positive that I want to take for myself and put into my own legacy, but also even the things in the legacies, everything that we had to go through in our own personal lives prepared us for today. Like, I'm thankful for the things that weren't good, the things that I experienced that were passed down from generation to generation. Each experience made me the person I am today. And if I wasn't for me traveling that particular path, I would not be where I am today or whose I am today. My path, Gary's path, the paths we traveled together, we could probably make a movie. Like Bishop said earlier, we'd have been through some stuff. But listen, we had to go through all of that to see God work in the ways that he did. And he continues to. So for me, living the legacy is different. It's that much more important. Like the output of the legacy, Michaela and Madison, their output, one day our grandchildren. It was necessary for our preparation, and it's also necessary for their preparation. So every lesson learned, we got to answer. God. Every generational curse we weren't even aware existed, we got a plan. God. Every upcoming high, God. Every low, God. It's all in our legacy. It will be in their legacy. He allowed us to walk and live it out so that we can weed out the bad, double down on the good, encourage and love through the lows. Because there's still going to be some lows. We're still going to experience lows. Celebrate the highs and plan, preparation, plan for the transition. So when the next person, whether it's their spouses, their spiritual coverings, their friends, their co-workers, come into contact with them, they'll be able to say, I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your mother and father, Gary and LaQueshia. I am persuaded now lives in you also. And for my grandchildren, when they come into contact, I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother and your grandfather and in your mothers. Ooh, okay. So point number 3, let me see what I'm doing, how I'm doing on time. Point number 3, each generation of legacy learns from the others and builds for the future. With legacy comes vision and assignment. When Jesus was preparing to leave and fulfill his assignment, he spoke to them in John 14 and said, greater works will you do. John 14:12, NIV reads, verily, very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. And this passage, as he was setting them up for the changing of guards, he also was giving them vision. He said, whoever believes in me will do the works, and I have been doing that I've been doing and will do even greater. So when I was researching, it said that Jesus' ministry among the people lasted about 3 years. So this is 3 years of him ministering with the disciples by his side, teaching the word, performing miracles, casting out demons. He was one man, one. They were 12, greater. His ministry was 3 years. Their ministry would proceed well after greater. He equipped them with all they needed to carry on the work and advance the kingdom. He was limited to a region and a specific people. They will be worldwide and continue to create more disciples, greater works. We're talking about greater. Even if Jesus can do in 3 years what he did with the 12 disciples, what can you do with the time we have in Christ? We the fruit of Jesus. What does our fruit look like? Are we able to look at our ministry and say we are on track to create a legacy? Because we all contribute to the legacy, right? Are we able to look at our children and say we are on track with creating a legacy? We talk about transparency now. It's just a self-check. I got to do the same check. It come to me first. Are we able to look at our families, our communities, our businesses? What legacies are we leaving? Is it a legacy of you, or is it a legacy of Christ? Because remember, I said all legacies aren't good. You got good legacies, you got bad legacies. We can't lose focus. We are his disciples, and in creating legacy, the common thread that threads us all together is the legacy of Christ. When Michaela and Madison are positioned for the changing of guards, I don't need them to carry on the legacy of Rita. I don't need them to carry on the legacy of LaQueshia. I don't have to carry on. They should not be carrying on the legacy of Jan. They don't need to carry on the legacy of Gary. They need to carry the legacy of Christ. If all that we are doing does not ignite them to carry the legacy, then again, we are missing the opportunity to expand our reach. It's bigger than us. The Bible says 1 can chase 1,000, 2 can put 10,000 to flight. So the disciples were with Jesus in his ministry for 3 years. They were able to see him in action. They were able to see him under pressure. They were able to see how he reacted when he was doubted, when his identity was called into question. They were able to see him interact and learn from him. But when he left, he gave them the vision. I am sure they were able to take the legacy of Christ and replicate and build upon that. With vision comes assignment. So when we get a vision, they're going to take it and they're going to build on it. Bishop Roberta blessed me when she was here for church, for our church elevation discussion, because one of the things that stood out to me was she said, we have to make room for people to step up. We need to do this with our young people. We need to do this with our successors. Give them grace. We can't make them be us. Just as we took time and even experience to learn and grow where we are now, it will take them time and experience as well. We got to learn to meet people where they are. You may have overcome it. You may have mastered something. You may have found what works for you, but learn to coach them there. Like we went or going through our lives, it's different. It replicates differently in different people's lives. So coach them to where we need them to be. What works for you may not work for everybody. Your strategy may not fit within their life. They'll get there. Chastise and correct them when we need to. Yes. Not saying, I'm not saying that. Spare the rod, spoil the child. But coach and correct and love so we don't lose a generation. We have got to be open to different ways to reach people. It may not always be the brick and mortar. And this season, we may have to increase our reach with social media and other platforms. We got to get engaged and get them engaged. We may have to get out there and feed people and pass out socks and go to the Ronald McDonald House and cook meals. It may not be comfortable with every strategy. We might not be comfortable with every strategy, but because we're mentoring the next generation and staying connected to them and our successors, we should be more open to what we are passionate about. It still ties in and pushes the vision. Write the vision, make it plain, allow them to take that vision and build on it, and the assignment of the legacy will be fulfilled. So in closing, legacy, remember, legacy impacts multiple areas of life. It expands across multiple spheres of influences. Like, make sure even with our intent that we're intentional with what we're doing. And legacy will be defined by your passion. Every area of our lives that we have influence, there lives legacy. Prepare for the new thing that God will do in you and through you by living out your legacy. Legacy requires transition. If we have to be willing to focus on our relationship with God to make sure we're able to connect with the next generation and position ourselves to pour into them and prepare them for the changing of the guard. Legacy requires preparation. Every path we've walked has prepared us to build the legacy of Christ and to weed out the bad and create strong, positive legacies to be passed down from generation to generation. Lastly, each generation learns from the other and builds for the future. If we write the vision and make it plain and make room for that next generation to step up and give room to grow, God will grace them and bless them to be able to fulfill the assignment, because the legacy being left is the legacy of Christ, not the legacy of us. I pray you all receive something from the word today. I'll turn it back over.